Hi, everyone. So when I will follow the chat. So if you have questions or want to say something, you can raise your hand and you can message me in the chat. I will also try to follow the question and answer as well. So today we are going to talk about economics of a video game. Okay. Now, this is a long book with a lot of text, so we probably won't finish it. I know many of you have come to my lessons before, so we will now do application of economics. Okay. So I have my chat open. Words, economics means choices. It is the study of choices, yes. Alrighty, so let's zoom in because I know the text is a little bit small. So hopefully that's okay. So today, quick, I need my annotate. There we go, spotlight. Let's see. There we go. All right, quick, jump over the pit of lava and dodge that bad guy. Video games are fun to play. But did you ever wonder how a brand new video game got into your hands? Sure, you bought it at the store, but at some point it was just an idea in someone's head. Economics helps explain the choices that are made along the journey from idea to finished game. So Yolanda, you're right, economics is about choices. Why do certain video games get made? Like LOL, League of Legends. Why did company make League of Legends? So that's what we're going to talk about. So one of the things to know, basic economics. So basic economics. Canada, United States, England, Japan, Germany, many countries follow an economic system called capitalism. In this system, governments do not control most businesses and resources. Instead, people buy and sell as they wish in a free market. So in many countries, the video games that get made are the ones that consumers want. Because if you make a video game that people want to buy, you can make lots of money, lots of profit, right? Yeah, so Han Lu, you play video games on my iPad? Yeah, many people play games on their phones, me too. So economics is a system that helps resources, water, services such as education and goods get from producers to consumers. When you buy or download a game, so you download games on your phone, you're taking part in the economy. Consumers decide freely how to spend their money, and the companies choose how much the product should cost. In this type of system called a market economy, everyone involved has the freedom to make his or her decisions. Yeah, so Jade, you don't play video games. That is a choice you make. You choose not to play video games. Some people choose to play lots of video games. When I was younger, I used to play video games all the time. I would spend a lot of money on video games. So the tricky part is that there isn't always enough of the resources, services, or goods that we want and need. This is called scarcity. When you want to buy a new game but don't have enough money, then money is scarce for you. Often when you're playing a video game, your character doesn't have enough health or spell power. This is scarcity too. Scarcity forces you to make difficult choices. Often, these hard choices are what make a video game so much fun. Playing games can teach you about economics. So, economics of video games is not just about how video games get made. Why did video games get made? but also when you play video games. So when you play video games, you might have money to spend in game. Right? How do you decide what to buy in the video game? Or when you're playing with friends, how do you know what strategy to choose? It's all about economics. All righty. So footballer dragons. So all about footballs and dragons. So how do you decide whether to buy a $60 football game or download a cheap fantasy game and also buy a cool t-shirt? In this decision, you have to make a trade-off. Yeah, if you spend the money on the football game, then you can't spend the same money on anything else. The fun you will have playing the fantasy game and wearing the t-shirt in this example is the opportunity cost of buying a football. An opportunity cost is what you have lost by making a different choice. Yeah, so video games are expensive, Hanlu. And like Yolanda said, you choose the things you want to have. But every choice to do something is also a choice to not do something. So if I choose to buy a new video game, what do I give up instead? Maybe I give up the opportunity to go to dinner with my friends. Of course, price can also influence your decision. If the football game costs $30, maybe you'll buy an extra copy for your friend because the game is cheaper. The game was $60, now it's $30. Maybe you'll buy a copy for your friend for Christmas because it's so cheap. Consumers all have a certain amount of disposable income. So disposable income is money left over after paying taxes. This amount helps determine what prices a consumer can afford. So disposable income is really important. Disposable income means I get money, but I have to pay the government taxes. The government takes some of my money. How much money do I have after government takes money from me? That's my disposable income. Now, here's something really important. If the price of a good falls and the income and choices remain the same, people will buy more of that good. This is the law of demand. That's super important in economics, the law of demand. Price goes down, I want more of it. So the cheaper video games are, the more video games you'll buy. The more expensive video games are, the fewer you'll buy. That's the law of demand. But how much will demand rise? A lot or a little? Well, that is the price elasticity of demand is a measure of how a change in price affects your behavior. Yeah, demand and supply, Yolanda, exactly. So demand and supply helps us figure out the price of a game. And elasticity, that word elasticity is like elastic. Yeah, like elastic, how stretchy something is, like a rubber band. If something is elastic, it means change a lot. If something is inelastic, it means change a little bit. So here's the question. Yeah, like an elastic band, exactly, Yolanda. So if the price of video games goes down, will you buy a little bit more or will you buy a lot more? That's elasticity. Now, generally, luxury goods such as video games and movies have elastic prices, meaning that small price shifts lead to large changes in demand. Ooh, that's a great question, Lisa. So is that why the air travels are cheaper these days? What do you mean? Because of explain what you mean a little bit. So I'm going to continue reading, Lisa, but ask your question a little bit differently. What do you mean exactly? So casting your vote. Your choices make a difference in the economy. Consumer sovereignty, that's a good word, sovereignty. Look, sovereignty, that's difficult to say. Is the idea that people like you control what companies make. How does that work? If every child decided to buy a football game instead of fantasy games, companies wouldn't make any money trying to sell fantasy games. You can't see me. You should be able to. You can't see me. Yeah, you should be able to. Goodbye, dragons. In a way, when you choose to buy a game, you are casting a vote for that particular product. So in a market economy, consumers decide what type of video games to make. So if everyone really likes League of Legends, right? League of Legends, LOL, right? League of Legends. If everyone really likes League of Legends, very popular, what kind of games will companies want to make? Well, the same kind of games like League of Legends, because they can make lots of money. But if suddenly people said, League of Legends is stupid, League of Legends is awful, what a terrible game, then businesses will make different games. So you decide what games businesses will make. All right. So video game industry, Mobile Legends, bang. People love playing video games. In 2012, people in the United States spent a total of $20.77 billion on video games, including game systems, accessories, and games themselves. Games that come in a box still make most of the money, but free and cheap downloadable games are changing the industry. Do you know who this guy is? Shigeru Miyamoto? Nintendo. You know Nintendo? Yeah, Nintendo. So he's managing director for Nintendo. Yeah, I like Nintendo. So you have Nintendo, and you have Sony, and you have Microsoft. 3 big game companies. So did you know that Super Mario is the best-selling video game of all time? Ooh, not Google. Oh yeah, PlayStation versus Xbox. Chrome is a web browser by Google. So Super Mario is the best-selling video game brand of all time. Nintendo has sold more than 500 million Mario-themed games. Japanese game designer, I think Shigeru Miyamoto, created the Goofy plumber character in 1981. That's a long time. 1981. Yeah, PlayStation 5. So do paper origami Mario. Yeah. So I like Paper Mario. Paper Mario was fun. But do you know what the first video game was? The first video games. Have you ever heard of Pong? electronics manufacturer Atari, yeah, ping pong, like exactly, ping pong, released this video game in 1972. Players had to bat a ball back and forth on a boxy screen with just 2 colors. It was a simple game, but people loved it. So that was the first video game, Pong. In 1985, the Nintendo Entertainment System, NES, brought video games such as Mario and Zelda. Do you guys know Zelda? That was a very, I'm old. When I was young, when I was your age, Zelda was very popular. I haven't heard Zelda in a long time. From Nintendo. Yeah, Zelda and Nintendo. Early games didn't have lifelike graphics or movie-style special effects, but they still presented challenging obstacles and tested player skill. Jason, yeah, I like what you did there. Pong, that's basically Pong, right? You had, boop, and then the ball, boop, the ball, boop, back and forth. That was it, back and forth. But now, video games today are much more than just something you play alone while sitting at home. Games and gaming systems are now portable, right? Your phone. So you can carry them around in your backpack and play them on mobile phones, tablets, laptop computers, and handheld games. Like the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo Switch. There we go. Switch, there we go, like the Nintendo Switch. Pokemon. Some games involve dancing, singing, or swinging a controller, like the Wii. So the Nintendo Wii, the controller, right? You would move it and you could control on screen, not like this, but like all around. Some games involve dancing, singing. Other games connect you to a network of friends, allowing you to play together, even if you live miles apart. So do you guys like to play online or offline? So do you like to play online or offline? What do you like to do? Offline? Online? Huh, interesting. So a mix. And Jay doesn't play games. Oh, so sad. And Bruce, you don't play games either. Making games is a risky business. It costs millions of dollars to produce a full Xbox or PlayStation game. The game publisher has to sell hundreds of thousands of copies to make a profit. Profit is how much money the company has left over when you subtract the money the company spent to make the game, the cost, from the money people paid for the game, the revenue. The game is a success for the company only if the revenue are higher than the costs. So here's the problem. When people make video games, they don't know if the video game is going to be successful. And video games cost millions of dollars to make. So video games are high risk and high cost. This is why do they not try playing it? So they try and play it, but they don't know if consumers will like it, right? So if I'm a video game, if I make a video game, I may think, I love this video game. This video game is amazing. But you guys might think, Andrew's crazy. This is a horrible game. Why would anyone like this? And exactly, what if people don't buy them? Well, then the company loses money. This is one reason why mini games are series or sequels, right? It's really, if I have a profitable game, it's easy to make a sequel. Like, Dota Dota 2, Dota 3, Dota 4, Dota 5, Dota 5. Because I know Dota was successful, like League of Legends 1, League of Legends 2, League of Legends 3. Video games are high risk, high cost. So the supply and demand for video games. So video games companies want to make as much revenue as possible. So why don't they just charge more for games? Well, one reason is that people who are interested in games might not be able to afford the higher price. Other types of entertainment, such as movies or books, will seem like a better deal. The law of demand states that as prices rise, the number of goods people will buy will drop. A risk here means that you may not want it, like how you, exactly, Yolanda, exactly. Businesses may think this game is going to make us lots of money, but it's a flop. The game was a flop, means just no one liked it. How do they guess what kind? Yeah, so flop means to fail. So in English, if something is a flop means it failed, didn't work out. Like Yolanda said, I thought it would be good, but it was a flop, it failed. And Lisa, how do they guess what kind of people will like it? So they do market research, just means, so they do market research. And market research means you talk to customers. You say, from Lisa, still not me. Why does it keep saying? Because it says, I'm confused. From Lisa to panel. Anyway. So market research means they try to talk to customers. The game called Sonic made a movie to entertain more people to play the game. True, that's advertising. I know, two Lisas. I don't know how to tell the difference. So just Lisa. There's only two Lisas. Okay. Remember that games tend to have elastic prices. So remember, elastic prices. If price changes a little bit, there'll be a big change in demand. People will buy a lot more or a lot less, meaning that demand is very sensitive to changes in price. Exactly, Yolanda. Doctor visits, on the other hand, tend to have very inelastic prices, meaning that the price can change without affecting demand very much. If you need a cast for a broken leg, your family will find a way to pay the price. So doctors have price inelastic demand. You need to see the doctor. If the doctor is expensive, you're still going to pay to see the doctor. So elastic prices mean that charging less for something can actually earn the company more money because so many more people will buy it. Elasticity is one reason that many downloadable games for smartphones and tablets cost 99 cents. Cheaper games meet a huge number in the increase of downloads. So video games on the phone are really cheap. $2, $3, $4, pretty darn cheap. Why? Because they can sell millions of games. So finding equilibrium. But why aren't all games super cheap, right? So games on the phone are pretty cheap, but games for the PlayStation 5, games for Microsoft, for Xbox, for PlayStation are kind of expensive. Why? Well, it's because of supply, which is the opposite of demand. Supply is the number of games that companies make to sell at a certain price. If prices fall, companies can't make as much money from each sale, so they make fewer games. Fewer games at lower prices means demand starts to rise, then companies can charge more again. Over time, markets tend to find a price where supply and demand are roughly equal. At this equilibrium or balance point, enough people who want the game can buy it, and the game companies are making enough money to stay in business. So over time, there's an equilibrium. So there's an equilibrium for games on smartphones. Maybe, yeah, $3, 21 yuan. Is that expensive or cheap? So Bruce, do you think $3 is expensive or cheap? So anyone can buy a book and start reading it. But to play video game, you need to own a device first. How many smartphones, computers, and video game consoles does your family have? So I love books. Well, that's good. What about video games and consoles? So do you have a PlayStation? Do you have a iPhone? Do you have a Xbox? The average household has at least one of these devices, and more than 50% own a console that is used only for games. The markets for mobile phones, mobile games, computer games, and console games are all different. Console games still make more money than any other part of the game market. So that phrase, console games, that's like Xbox, PlayStation 5, Switch, Wii. Cheap in America and a little expensive in China. Yeah. So that phrase, console games. Think about Xbox, PlayStation 5, the Switch, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo DS. These games could not exist without the console industry. So the console industry, the PlayStation 5s, Xbox Series S, people won't buy a brand new console unless they can buy really great games to go with it. Game companies will only make games for a console if they think enough people will buy the device. So in the US, almost everyone has a computer, a PC. Nintendo Wii, smartphone, Xbox 360, iPad Touch. You can see it varies. This is why most games are also released on PC. Why? Most games are still released on PC because most people have a computer. Yeah, Steam, exactly. Exactly, Steam. So lots of games for like PS4 and Xbox 360 on 360 also are on Steam, usually. So the big three. Sony makes the PlayStation and Vita, Microsoft makes the Xbox, and Nintendo makes the Wii and DS series. The three companies form an oligopoly. What do we mean Steam? So, how would you explain Steam? Steam is a video game marketplace. You can download video games and play them. So there is a computer program called Steam, and you download it and you can buy games on it. It's very, very popular for PC. So if you are a PC gamer, you probably have Steam installed. But these three companies, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, make an oligopoly because they control almost the entire game console market. They control all of it. In an oligopoly, if each company keeps prices high, then the whole group benefits. But if one company lowers prices, a price war may follow. Console prices are very competitive, and a company may even lose money each time it sells a console. But the company will make that money back from sales of video games made for the console. This is really important. It seems kind of weird, but Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo lose money selling their consoles. So Sony sells you a PlayStation 5 at a loss. Sony and Microsoft do not make profit selling their consoles. You go, what? Why would Sony and Microsoft do that? Because they make money from the video games. So Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo make money not from their consoles, but from their video games. So that's what's important to know. It's strange, isn't it? But now here's the thing. Every game you play began as an idea, but most ideas never make it into production. Or off the drawing. That was my son. I work for, yeah, that was my son. So my son came into the room and my wife had to yell at him. That was the strange noise. And the strange noise, yeah. Okay. So the first step in making a video game is to predict whether it will be a success. The company will predict how many games it might sell based on how many copies of or similar games it sold in the past. If it thinks it can make more money in revenues than it will spend in costs, then it's game on. So the first step in making a video game is the idea. So you have to have a really good idea. So here's the thing. Ninja geckos. Let's say that a new Xbox game just came out about Zuni and the Ninja geckos. Just an example, made up idea. A brand of heroes who battle evil cactus invaders. This game probably didn't start when one person imagined a ninja gecko. More likely, a company knew it wanted to make an action game for Xbox, and this idea won out over many others. So the first thing when businesses are making a video game, they brainstorm ideas. So they have a meeting and they say, what would make a good video game? And people say, I know, a video game about this. Someone says, no, a video game about that. They have an idea. They brainstorm ideas for a new video game. The game characters and their world are intellectual property. This is a term for the ideas that belong only to the person or company who created them. In other words, other companies couldn't make products using Zuni the gecko unless they got permission and pay a licensing fee. That's very nice, Bruce, to have such a nice computer. So intellectual property. So let's think LOL, League of Legends. Okay. The characters, the art, League of Legends belongs to that company. I cannot use that term. I cannot use League of Legends video game or characters or art for my video game. Right? I could not take League of Legends and say just new title. That would be illegal. If I wanted to make a shirt that says League of Legends, I must pay the company money because that logo, the League of Legends, not laugh out loud, but yeah, that League of Legends logo, hang on. All right, just something in the background, sorry. So yeah, copyright, exactly. So I cannot use that copyright unless I pay the company money. So that is intellectual property and licensing fee. So licensing fee, I pay game company in order to use their logo, their intellectual property. Now, in the game industry, as well as book and movie industries, a popular character or world is called a brand. Here are some brands you probably recognize: Super Mario, Star Wars, and Angry Birds. Do you guys play Angry Birds? I used to play Angry Birds a lot. Brands have power in a market economy because many people stay loyal to a brand even if other options are cheaper or of a higher quality. Have you heard of Star Wars? Any Star Wars? Maybe. You might buy a Star Wars game instead of the Ninja Gecko game because you already love Star Wars and you don't know anything about Gecko. So brand is saying you might buy a Star Wars video game. I don't know what that is. That's weird. It's weird. So Star Wars is a brand. Yeah, a movie. You know about Star Wars. You've heard about it before. You might think, I love Star Wars. I want to buy a Star Wars video game. Now, it can be a big gamble. Yeah, it's a movie. So big gamble equals big risk. It's a very famous science fiction movie. I don't really like Star Wars. It can be a big gamble, a big risk to make a game that doesn't have a character or world that is already well known. For this reason, series games are common. That's what I said earlier. People like brands, like Grand Theft Auto or Dota, or can you think of another brand? What? PUBG, right? You know those brands, those titles. If I were to try to make a completely new game, people go, what is this game? I've never heard of it. I know nothing about it. People like to buy things that they already know. So when a company makes a new series, it knows that people who love the other games in the series will most likely buy the new games too. This is what you see in movies as well. Movies are also high risk, high cost. When something is high risk and high cost, you often see series, the same type of movie over and over and over again. Alrighty. So this will probably be a revenue and costs. Xbox or PlayStation games can cost as much as $100 million or more to make. Does that surprise you? $100 million to make a video game. That's a lot of money. people don't realize making a video game is really expensive. To help pay for the high cost of development, game companies need funding or sources of money to support building the game. So how do game publishers, game developers get this money? Well, game companies or publishers such as Nintendo or Sony usually provide funding to creative people known as game developers. In return, the publisher gets a percentage of the revenues. Sometimes developers pitch ideas to publishers, and at other times, publishers hire developers to build games for them. The two companies sign a legal contract or detailed agreement that explains how all of the costs and revenues will be shared between them. So here's what happens. There's a difference between publishers and developers. Developer is someone who creates games. So developer is creator of the game. Publisher is company that distributes the game. So I am Nintendo. I actually don't make many of my games. I pay a developer to create the game for me. So developers create the games. A publisher just distributes the game. So that's a little bit strange, right? The publisher often pays the lion's or bigger share of the cost of making the game, while the developer does almost all of the work. So the developer gets money from the publisher, and the developer does most of the work. Since the publisher pays the most money, it also takes on the most financial risk. This means that the publisher will take a bigger loss if the game fails, but it could also make much more profit if the game succeeds. So here's the thing. Earlier, I said high risk, high cost, but there's also high risk, high reward. So in 2010, the game developer Bungie, so Bungie made the game Halo. Yeah, Bungie made the video game series Halo. So Bungie is the developer of Halo. Microsoft is the publisher. So in 2010, the game developer Bungie and the Activision planned to spend 3 years and $140 million on the first console game in a new series. That's a lot of money. It's crazy how much money video games cost. The game may bring extremely high profits, but if it makes less than the $140 million in revenue, the companies will take a loss. Despite the risk of taking a loss, many companies see the opportunity for a high financial reward as an incentive or motivation to make new games. So, now that's crazy. So royalties owned to Bungie. So contract for Destiny. So here's the other thing. I just want to read this to you. Publisher Activision. So Activision is a very famous publisher, and development studio Bungie signed a contract in 2010 for a series of 4 action games codenamed Destiny. The first game was due out in 2013. Here are some of the details of the contract. 4 games and 4 expansions in 10 years. Bungie will develop a Destiny game every 2 years starting in 2013. On the off years, Bungie will release an expansion to the game codenamed Comet. $140 million, the total maximum budget for the first Destiny game on Xbox 360, including marketing costs. Video games are expensive to make. They're really crazy. It's an entire industry. There's so much that goes into making video games. So I'm going to stop there. There's so much to talk about with video games. So I'm going to stop there. And what I'll do is I see a question, I'll open up to any questions. Oh, answer live. Done. That's how you'll answer. So let's see if, yeah, love video games. I love shooting games like CSGO. So you can raise your hand. I can allow you to talk if you would like to talk. You can ask questions in the chat, but we can just sit here and talk for a few minutes. So Brandon, all right, so I'm gonna allow Brandon to talk. So allow to talk. Hi, Brandon.
Hi, Andrew.
So what's your question? How are you?
Yeah, I'm great. And my question is probably like the publisher, can the publisher, like you have a great game, and is publisher very important for your game if you want your game to be very famous in the world?
Yes. So you need to become a big publisher. So there's the developer and the publisher. The publisher is a big company. They have the money, they have the resources. The developer is the one who creates the game. So if you have an idea for a new game, you're a developer, you want to find a very famous publisher like Sony or Microsoft or Nintendo. Because if they publish your game, that means your game is going to become very famous, very popular. If you don't have big publisher behind you, people might not think your game is very good.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alrighty. So Shinran, hi.
Hi. So my question, I have many questions. So the first question is, do the publisher and the developer divide the revenue they get, or do they do they have it like equal, or who gets more?
Yeah, so I'll answer that question first. So in the contract, they will decide how the money is split. Usually the publisher gets a lot of money. So the publisher might get 70 or 80% of the revenue. The developer might only get 20%. So the publisher gets a lot of the money than the developer. So that's the first answer to the question is yes, they divide the money, but usually the publisher gets most of the money. The developer doesn't get a lot of the money.
Like if, for example, now I made a game and there's a publisher and a developer, and then I want to make a sign using your game's logo, then who will I pay, the publisher or the developer? Like, whose game is this?
Complicated question. It depends on the contract. So in the contract, you can specify who owns the game. And there have been lots of fights over this, over who actually owns the intellectual property to the game. Usually the contract will specify, give very exact detail saying the publisher owns the intellectual property or the developer owns the intellectual property. But sometimes it's not as clear cut. So,
well, is there any case I say we divide this money, like the publisher and the developer?
So they can, but that's usually not good. When you try to divide things like intellectual property, people always want more, right? If it's a very successful video game, I'm going to say, I want more money. This is mine. It's mine, mine, mine. You will say it's yours, yours, yours. And we will fight. Then we will go to the court. We will sue each other. So dividing things in a contract is never good because it causes lots of fights. It's best to have very clear separation. It's yours or it's mine, no in between.
And can a company make a game and then publish it by itself?
Yeah, so we actually call that independent publisher. All right, so this is why Steam. So there's a platform called Steam, which is very popular among indie developers. So we call them indie developers. And these are developers who also publish their own games. A lot of companies that make games for smartphones are independent developers. The advantage is that I don't have to pay a publisher. I can just put my game on the App Store or on Steam and directly distribute the game, publish it directly. So I can keep more of the money than finding a publisher.
But then if you have a more powerful or more famous publisher, then your game would likely sell more copies.
So that's the trade-off. That's the opportunity cost. So a big publisher can advertise. So a publisher like Sony or Microsoft has lots of money. They can advertise your game. They can market your game. If you're a small company, you just publish your game. You don't have money to market it. You don't have money for advertising. So yeah, you can, but it's a trade-off. It's an opportunity cost.
Like if I'm Sony, then I could make a game and I could sell it myself. But if I'm a company who nobody knows, then maybe I would find Microsoft and say, maybe you be my publisher.
Exactly, perfect.
And like, what is the percentage of independent publishers and different developers and publishers?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. So it depends how you want to define the market. Because smartphones like the Apple Store and the Google Store and the Huawei Store allows independent publishers. So if you include smartphones, the majority of games would be independent publishers or indie developers. For the consoles like PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo, those are almost all big publishers. You have almost no independent developers. And on the computers, like the PC, I would say about half, 50-50. Any other questions?
Like, do the three big companies make more money by being the publisher or by being the independent publisher?
So the three big companies make money being publishers. So Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo do not make money selling consoles. They lose money. So every PlayStation 5, every new Xbox you buy, Microsoft and Sony are losing money. They make money by being a publisher, by selling games and taking some of that money. So Microsoft, Nintendo, and Sony, make money by selling games, not by making consoles. Oh, so, all right. So thank you for this question, Shinran. I'm going to mute you because I have one question from an anonymous attendee, but thank you so much, okay?
Thank you too.
You're welcome. So this will be the last question. I had a question saying, what about instant gaming? So I'm not sure what you mean by instant gaming, but maybe you mean cloud gaming. So cloud gaming is like a game streaming service where I stream the game to my computer. That is complicated. That is all about licensing fees. That's when licensing fees become really, really important. So things like Google and Microsoft have to pay these companies licensing fees to stream the game to your computer. So it's more complicated because you have to pay the developer and publisher money. That's where it gets complicated. If I'm a game streaming service, I have to pay two people, the publisher and the developer. If I'm Sony or Microsoft, I only have to pay the developer a certain amount of money. So it has been great. It's 9 o'clock. It has been a pleasure. I hope to see you again sometime soon. Right? I'll see you. Bye-bye.